Nancy here as our secretary. I'd like to welcome you all for coming on such a cold night. And we have Cllr Drew Mellor here, who's current leader of the BCP Council. We also have our local representatives. We've got Jane Kelly, Andy Jones, George Barker. I think that's all. We elected reps today. So, what we're going to do is Harry and I are going to run through some items on the agenda, and then we've got a running order. Basically, we're going to, between us, we're going to cover items 1 to 4, and then item 5, which will be the latter half of the meeting. Councillor Mellor is going to answer some questions that, or report on some questions that we asked him to report on, and also open to questions from the floor. So, first of all, fire exits. If we hear the fire alarm, we go out through this door and turn left to the library, which is our normal exit in any case. So just follow that route out. And I would suggest that we rendezvous within that external car park just to do a quick head count. There is tea and coffee and hot chocolate at the back for anyone who wants anything. And I'll start with an update from the local police. And we have apologies from Inspector Helen Deakin, but she has sent us the following updates. So there's ongoing ASB issues at Boscombe Bus Station, which is linked to homeless and street drinkers. Police, we have been doing a lot of work with the ASB Council League to tackle the repeat offenders. We're carrying out regular targeted patrols and issuing dispersal notices to remove people from the area. We are looking at getting injunctions against those who are prolific. I think the Schwepp cold weather is still in operation, is it?
It's been deactivated now.
Oh, right, well, yeah, well, I was reading there was less homeless in central Bournemouth during that period, but locally, I'm not so sure. She also commented on emerging crime series and theft from motor vehicles in the area of Springbourne, mainly happening overnight between midnight and 10 AM. We are tackling this using covert and overt police tactics. Cars are either being left insecure or window smashed to gain entry. Local officers have been doing a lot of work in the area and providing updates on social media, including crime prevention advice. There's quite often updates on Facebook from local constables, and I'm sort of half of me thinks that's great because they're engaging, and half of me thinks, how long do they spend on that in the warm office? But I guess we should accept that it's a good thing to communicate with us. Our third point is there is a general increase in what's called acquisitive crime, burglary and theft from cars. So they are continuing to target resources at most risk areas, but doesn't specify. Current 3 top priorities for Boscombe are on the Dorset Police website. Please have, so she's asking you to have a look on the website and to follow the police on Facebook. As I've already said, they do share daily activities and also advertise engagement events and neighbourhood policing matters. And then point 5, finally, this week we have a national week of action targeting ASB. We will be focusing on the above as well as other areas including Woodland Walk, Southbourne Spring Rd, Spring Walk, Tesco Riverside. And last night my team arrested a known burglar. So that's from Inspector Deakin. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maureen, it's a shame the police couldn't come, but they did send apologies. We do like them to turn up to all the forums, because obviously there's usually lots of questions. If there's anything you want us to chase up, you can let us know. Just let us know afterwards. We can chase any issues you might be having, and we'll make sure that we get someone next time. To do some updates from the Towns Fund, Martha has sent a list of what the Towns Fund's been up to. So they've 7 of the projects of the Towns Fund, together with the branding, were recently launched. I think it was launched just before Christmas. The Skills Hub, to create an inclusive and creative knowledge centre providing residents with the opportunity to learn a variety of skills. That will be situated within the Better Boscombe offices in the Royal Arcade. Kings Park, the lease will be purchased in 2022, and a community activity hub will then be created, offering sports, fitness, training and health, all complemented by a programme of adult education. Parks in Mind, that's the 3rd project. So this is a green project which aims to use the therapeutic nature of being outdoors to support mental and physical well-being, whilst helping to enhance and shape parks and open spaces. Activities such as craft work will be included, and the project will be shaped to the needs of the participant. The Toft Steps Beach Box Park. The box park will be created to replace the current derelict cabins using 40-foot converted shipping containers. It is envisaged that the three new start-up businesses from the BCP area will be given 1-year leases, and at the end of the year, help will be given to find permanent accommodation elsewhere in the area. It is hoped that 15 new businesses will be created over 5 years, creating 30 jobs, and the first businesses will be operating from spring 2023. The old schoolhouse, this will provide a hall and meeting rooms for hire, as well as co-working space for 28 creative businesses. Also, various sources of funding have been provided to install an air source heat pump, carry out the repair and restoration of the windows, because it's a grade 2 listed, and install secondary glazing and insulation of the building. The digital connectivity, it is anticipated that this will establish Boscombe as a key technology innovation location, which, as well as benefiting residents, will encourage technology businesses to establish within Boscombe. There will be an events programme. A curator will be employed shortly to lead this project in order to deliver a 3-year programme of events, with potential for an annual carnival or parade, street art and busking, involving 10 local artists, 40 workshop participants a year over a 3-year period, 17 new arts commissions and 17 events over 3 years. Boscombe High Street. By 2026, the High Street will be a vibrant, quirky, safe and attractive centre, providing a range of shops, services, leisure and job opportunities for the local community. This will be achieved by refurbishing 20 derelict buildings, improving the appearance of shop fronts and reusing upper floors to create at least 5 new homes, increasing the number of businesses open in the evening and weekends, benefiting from the footfall created by the O2 venue. Branding. A brand using a special logo has been created for the people of Boscombe to celebrate and stand by. The branding has brought together a number of aspects of the area, including the colours of Boscombe, and the logo itself was inspired by the Art Deco days of the area, which remain an important visual aspect of the area. Other projects within the Towns Fund currently under consideration are the Royal Arcade, the Master Plan and local transport projects. Boscombe Cliff Gardens, the possibility of converting, that's not the Towns Fund. So yeah, they're still, I think they've gone to submission with the, those,
Went through council, yeah.
so it's been through council, it's going to be submitted to the government.
Yeah.
That's on the master plan. So the master plan is the building on the Hawkswood Road car park, which has been reduced in size, so there's a bit more parking on the site on either end, and that's lesser houses. There will still be a community centre, but it's on a smaller scale. The Royal Arcade, still to renovate the ground floor and the first floor, to leave the second and third floors and the basements till later, because the costs of everything has gone up with inflation. So they've just had to adjust the figures what they can do with the funding they've got, and other local transport projects. So other things to talk about so Boscombe Cliff Gardens, the possibility of converting the now closed toilet building into a community cafe was raised at the last forum. We've since met with Tina Kirkman from BCP Council and recognised that the cost involved would be high and that funding would need to be raised over a period of time, as well as obtaining permission from the council. As a starting point, Tina is going to speak to the grounds team to see if we can get a group of residents together to help in the gardens and thereby be able to gauge local interest before taking this to the next stage of forming a friends group to raise funding. Fly tipping, I know that's a big issue in certain areas of Boscombe. You may recall that last year Peter Haken from BCP attended to the forum to discuss the problem of fly tipping. At that meeting he advised that a proposal would be going to Cabinet in November to address the problem. This proposal was to go out to tender for a service provider to enforce offences in relation to littering and fly tipping, which would involve issuing fines for such offences, the income from which would fund the cost of the service provider and legal fees incurred by the council, and this was agreed. In view of the amount of time it will take to prepare tender documentation, the current service in relation to fly tipping will continue for the time being, but we are hopeful that there will be a service provider for fly tipping littering in place by April.
Can I just point out that our local councillors, Jane Kelly, but particularly George Farmer and Andy Jones here, regularly do local patrols and regularly report fly tipping. So if you're not getting any joy as an individual phoning up or just getting blanked off, then please feel free to go via your councillors. Both George and Andy are very good at putting updates and resolutions to situations. So we are aware there's various hotspots in the area. For example, Churchill Gardens is an ongoing problem. We're very aware of that, as are our councillors, and if there's any initiatives that we hear of that could work to the benefit, then we'll be sure to pass it on.
Just to say, your place in my ward is a regular fly tipping zone. We've had some successful prosecutions there. So it's well worth it if you do come across it, let yourself, George, Shane or whatever know. We can then pass it on to the enforcement officers, but obviously if they can find enough evidence within the fly tip, and that does happen. I know sometimes it's extremely unlikely, but they can find bits and pieces and tie it to an individual or a company, they will prosecute, and we have had some successful prosecutions, so it's well worth doing that.
And if I may, what Peter Hagen was referring to, so that's actually been a bit of trial that's happened and been successful, which we've carried it on now, and extended what they can do. So we've now got more capacity to do exactly what Andy was talking about in terms of prosecuting. So it seems to be working.
Is that having an effect on reducing?
Effectively what we're told is yes it is, but it's still a problem. So now we've got more of a resource to deal with it. But so again, exactly right. So just report it effectively. But yeah, so there's more resource there than there was a year ago, and the early trial has been successful. So we're doing it for longer now. I think the company we're doing called Wise. I think of
Is there any data to suggest whether it's domestic or business waste?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that effectively.
I know Churchill Garden seems to get quite a lot of
it's
building
a mix.
waste.
I think it's a
doesn't
mix.
it?
Gary Sherman lives on near Churchill Gardens.
Yeah, Drew, Jane. I hear that Watkins who kind of look after our little park and that area for the most part, because we're excessive, the problems we have. Their contract ends in March, and you're taking it in-house back to the council. We've had loads of initiatives trying to deal with this problem for years and years and years, and just, we haven't found a solution. I was wondering if you've got any clue what's going to happen in March, April, when their contract ends. Can you give us any word how it's going to work?
Yeah, I'm not over the detail of update now. Can certainly look into it. I mean, if anybody else might know, what we do know is we've noticed a problem and we put more resource into trying to sort it out. But if you want, I can.
We've got other remedies in mind.
Yeah.
It's just asking our councillors to kind of think outside the
Yeah,
box a
right.
little bit.
Well,
I think
we're up for that. So just by all means feed it back in, and we can. Yeah, it's just something we need to all address together, isn't it?
Very good, just George.
So, thank you, Chair. I'm George Farquhar. I'm the fellow councillor with Andy here for Boscombe East and Folkestone, which the college actually sits in. Just to Andy's point about prosecutions, particularly in York Place, the WISE scheme is actually very effective in that it actually identifies from rubbish, etc., who it may have come from, and also whether it be commercial or residential. One of the suggestions that forum might want to push the council for, and again to whoever said thinking outside the box, Gary, thank you very much for that, is that if there is successful prosecutions, then it's name and shame, because you cannot deter fly tipping unless there is an obvious penalty, an obvious sanction upon somebody. So therefore it was name and shaming. Even if it was down to this number of prosecutions were made in the last month in these areas, then hopefully that would reduce people that would fly tip. An example of fly tip.
Can I just quickly interrupt? People are intimidated to report things, mooching in bins to get evidence, to submit to go.
No, Gary, you misunderstand. The enforcement company would do that. But what we're asking is that the enforcement company actually publishes its private prosecutions in areas, etc.
That was one of the initiatives for
And-
Social Gardens, and
an example again, Gary, just in our own ward here with Woodland Walk, just this week, somebody's decided to actually put bin bags of residential waste into their car, transport it to Woodland Walk, and then dump it. So a prosecution of that nature, being in the local papers, and again I would encourage the forum to encourage the local authority to do so, would be such that people would be discouraged from doing that. Commercial waste and those which are house clearing, etc., which Churchill Gardens is a big problem for.
I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
don't report it, I'm just saying as a remedy, it's proven
It is a case of
it hasn't stopped.
It is a case of, I know that there are prosecutions, and Drew will back me on this one, but we need to actually punish it as a deterrent. You could get caught, you could get fined, and how much you get fined.
I agree.
Can I just say that I live in Knoll Road, which runs in front of St Clement's Church, and it's not just Churchill Gardens. Even today, I've come up through the church yard, down Hamilton Road. As soon as you get through the winding part, come to the buffer flats that is council owned. Today I've seen stuff left out there, gone down Hamilton Road, and on the right hand side it's been there 5 days. A double mattress right outside a big block of flats. Now, the only thing I've come to is that when people get evicted and people move in, they see an old thing, they just dump it out on the street. So it's not just the Churchill Gardens. Where I live in the flats in Knoll Road, near Curtis Lodge, people are coming round the back of our bin area and dropping pushchairs, baby car seats, all sorts. And we still, we had a meeting of the 4 blocks like Curtis Lodge, Vale Lodge, and we had a meeting yesterday, and again I went out to the bins Monday, and again there was stuff at the back of the bins. But we can't put that into recycle or the general because it's not supposed to go in there basically. So all we can do is report it.
Yes.
Could I just say that, no, is that right? In Gary's defence, what is fly tipped in Churchill Gardens incessantly and almost daily, isn't it, Gary, is mostly station. But we, because of that, and because, you know, people are very understandably upset about it, we Watson to go around, I think, every other day, don't they, and collect everything.
They're our only sort of source of remedy at the moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
the council, because
is
of
far
different
more
easements,
frequent
they'll
than-
take stuff that's on the pavement that's not on the road, and if it's not, if it's a bit on each,
Yeah.
they'll put it back. So there's no
I mean, this,
joined up
there
thing.
wasn't this sort of problem before they put the communal bins in, was there? But
There was a
Or indeed charging at
At the Friends of Churchill Gardens meetings, I think 60% of their discussion is about the litter bins. We've got other issues we'd like to talk about, and the litter bins and waste, how we manage the waste as a council and as individuals.
I think you're right, we need to have a meeting outside this one about Churchill Gardens and their.
A lot of
I mean, it isn't just Churchill Gardens, there's a lot of issues in, but the fly tipping is everywhere. I mean, it's on behind where my business is, Remedia Lane is another hot spot. And perhaps there needs to be a different, if it's furniture waste and stuff, you know, there should be maybe free clearances and stuff, things that could benefit the area.
So I think there is a fine line to be drawn, and there seems to be a culture at the moment where if you don't want something in your house, you put it out supposedly to recycle on the pavement. And that's a difficult line to cross, because somebody's telling us, oh, I'll just give it to somebody else who's in the community. But it is actually fly tipping. So if it's outside of your property, it doesn't have a sign on it saying please take it away, this is to give to somebody, it just creates that general consensus it's okay to dump something on the pavement or the road. So I'm wondering whether the council could publish something to turn around and say, actually this is not acceptable. If you have something you want to recycle, there's appropriate Facebook forums to be able to go and do that, and have a really clear delineation between what fly tipping actually is and actually recycling.
I would suggest that there's also a financial implication, because if you don't have a vehicle, you can't go to the tip. There's nobody advertises to take rubbish away for free, except occasionally people advertise or knock on your door for metal. But general rubbish or house clearance or whatever, old mattresses, there's nobody who'll take it away for free. You will be charged. Now there used to be council uplift. I think you could 3 times a year have things uplifted. That's not available anymore. So I wonder if thinking out the box could be to have maybe just twice a year to begin with, spring and autumn, do a sort of amnesty weekend, publicise a weekend where you can put your bin lorries on overtime or manage it however,
that's
and
actually-
take things away on those specific dates, out with those dates. It's fine.
That's interesting actually. It might be something quite simple to do, because we're just bringing forward some hotspot cleaning, you know, where we're doing large over weekends. We're getting over extra cleaning vehicles in, so we can go do an area in one go. The idea of doing it weekend is because we're quite successful when the community come and do that as well alongside you. So you get a community. So we could potentially arrange for a collection in and around one of those sort of, you know, hotspot, you know, which might only be once or twice a year. But okay, fine. Well, that's
But make sure the message is that out with this free collection, you'll be down on it.
Yeah, I'll look into that. I think it's a good idea, and it could tie into what we're doing anyway with the deep clean and the community clean stuff we're bringing forward. So
Sorry.
I was just going to say something similar to Mog. It's like if you live in a flat, if you don't have a car, if you haven't got any money, what do you do? I mean, people do accumulate stuff, and it has to go somewhere. So why isn't there provision to be able to do that? I know you'd probably save money, but there must be a way, because I mean, making the place look terrible and encouraging vermin and all sorts of things. I live in an alley, there's rubbish there all the time. People travel there to dump mattresses and things. You know, it's really
There's
not
a local
nice.
mini tip or something on that.
Well, surely, you know, if people have got a car, they should be able to take it to the tip for free. And if they haven't, then there should be a way of maybe once a week, once a month, leaving it out and it gets collected. Maybe you ring up and, I mean, you used to have a thing where if you were on benefits, you could ring up and it would be taken away. But lots of people aren't on benefits, they're still hard up and it still needs to be got rid of. I think penalising people for just living normal lives is a bit
that's a good point.
Not
Because
helpful.
Yeah, it's just a suggestion that happens where my sister lives. They have a council, the council put a skip in a certain place every month, and people just take their stuff to the skip, and then it's collected on the same day of the month, you know, and it's just there, and it just people can take its stuff there, and then it's taken away.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
I mean, I remember vaguely about 15 years ago that they did have that, something like that in Bournemouth, basically. So, you know, I think it's maybe going back to the future with that, you know.
Yeah, I think probably works, but
There was an area on Hawkwood Road that had a couple of
Yeah.
huge open bins. I know it had lots of other rubbish, but maybe it centralised the dumping. I don't know.
Chester Avenue, I remember,
Yeah.
there was, do you remember that? Yeah, it was the end, yeah.
Just a question, and I might be too odd, but there was one time where the council, before it was PCP, where as a council tax payer, you could phone up the council and stock that you did not need would be collected 3 times a year. Does that still go on, or is that been abolished?
There's not even a service that you can pay for anymore. I don't think, because there was another service, council service, that used to pay 25 quid.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's
about
not-
£25-30 for the first item and less for the
It's
second.
special collections,
Yeah.
obviously.
I think that's still.
Depending on what
That's
you've
still
got,
available.
that's still going in.
Harry, I mean, I know my question, and maybe I should have rephrased it. Is the contract with Watkins borough-wide, the whole lot? They're gone. So, what is the cost to the council of Watkins at each year?
I don't know what the cost is, Gary, but my understanding is that when we cease the contract with Watkins, we will take the service in-house
Yeah,
and presumably cheaply over those workers.
but with respect, my question was, what is the plan? It's only a couple of months away. We've been talking for years. We've just done 20 minutes again. You know, what is the
What do you
plan?
mean, how's it going to change?
How are we going to solve the problem without coming up with new ideas? Because repeating the same ideas time and time again,
Yeah.
and
Well,
we borough-wide,
I think we
I
have
just
to
want to know.
continue collecting, don't we? But also maybe some of these new ideas we can implement.
I believe little micro projects, people have been talking about neighbourhoods doing something themselves. Lots of little initiatives. Doesn't have to be a grand plan. And I think Churchill Gardens would be a perfect place to experiment with some sort of new.
okay. Should we just
Yeah, good
finish
question.
up
So,
with
if is there any reason if the community actually agreed to excuse me, not to have mobile cameras or some sort of camera which is going to be put in those particular hotspots that can be moved around?
We've asked for Churchill Gardens to have cameras.
I think one of the
And is
problems
it
with the
reason
cameras
why
is when they move on, then
Yeah.
We don't need to know the cameras there, do you? It's a disincentive. So you just need
Yeah.
3 cameras to move around and catch some people who have it publicised. It's very, very low cost.
I think
But it needs agreement from the community.
I think as a forum we should probably revisit this at the in the near future. This was we were obviously revisiting this from a previous forum. We were chasing up Peter over it, so we can revisit this again and really try and put some emphasis behind really coming up with some solutions. I mean, I like the idea of having find an area car park with some skips in once a month and say come and bring us stuff here rather than then people at least they have a choice. I mean, if you are on a low
The
income,
builders just abuse it. People turn up in white vans, and when the residents have got to hump it down the steps because they've got no transport, it's full of rubble. That's been tried. Honestly, we need some new ideas.
okay, well I think it's something we can
Can I just
investigate.
say, at the back of Sainsbury's, some years back, there used to be 3 big commercial skips that were left for shoes, clothes, glass, bottle glass, and household white goods. But they disappeared years ago.
The whole site
Yeah.
did get very untidy, but then it was cleared up and the
But they never brought them. But they never brought them
bins
back.
never came back.
They never come back.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something we will revisit, and so we'll move on now quickly to the last point before we go to the main thing of the day. Local elections. Just to remind everyone that at the elections on the 4th of May this year, you're going to have some sort of photographic ID. It's a national change of law. So you need either a passport, a driving licence. There's a list on the government website of other things you can use. If you haven't got any of those things, there is a special kind of certificate you can get. You have to apply for it.
You can apply to your local council, isn't there? There's links up on BCP Council, how you go through the process to get your
If you don't have any suitable identification, you can apply online for this at www.gov.uk. If you don't have access to a computer, your local library should be able to assist you. The deadline for applications is the 25th of April. I wouldn't leave it to the last minute.
I've said that anyone who is having trouble getting online to do that, very happy to help.
Brilliant. So
I'm sure it goes round.
ask any of your councillors if you want some help, as well as the library. On the subject of the elections, we hope to organise a hustings. We've got to see if we can get enough people to help us to do that, but we have done that in the past. We've done a hustings event where we try and get all the candidates, Boscombe, East and West, in the same room, just to introduce themselves, gives you a chance to at least put a name to a face and maybe meet them afterwards and just hear a little bit of what they're going to say about themselves. You can't get too in depth because it's just going to be a couple of hours. We'll try and organise that, and we'll let you know if you keep your eyes peeled on our Facebook page, and we'll also get it in the Echo once we get a date. If you leave an email address, we do send out regular newsletters and stuff.
Can I just remind everybody, if you haven't put your name on the book there, could you do so before you leave so that we can add you to our circulation list? It would be appreciated. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Harry. I'm greatly concerned about not everybody's electronic, etc. Is there something which the forum can help out or get assistance from the council for a leaflet job for our demographic, our older generation that are not on the internet, not aware, etc. Because my concern is if they don't know and they turn up at the polling station, which they've done for decades, and then they're asked for a photographic ID, either they won't be carrying it with them or they have to return home and then go back to the polling station. So maybe the question to the local authority is what it's doing to inform that demographic, whether it's because, for instance, for the referendum for the Boscombe neighbourhood plan, there was a leaflet dropped in every door. Yeah, the money was found to drop in every door. I think for democracy, then I think we should push as a forum the local authority to do the same, because there is a demographic out there that will not get the message in the remaining 98 days to election time.
Have central government, alongside the new law, put anything towards getting this message out, or is it just left to individual councils?
There's a big campaign at the moment about it, a national campaign about it. We're running, our comms team running a local campaign about it. So we're very much trying to do that. The message you've got is effectively
a lot of that is relying on people looking at social media.
Yeah, no, and I can understand that. We will keep putting it on all of our channels. Again, but they're social media, based a lot of them.
You do send out don't you send out a magazine?
Yeah, there is, and that
is it in that?
Perhaps the engagement hub at the Royal Arcade, could they have some sign-on days be publicised?
Yeah, there's
have someone there.
I send out a letter, with all the council tax bills, every year, so it's on that. So so effectively a letter is going through. It's a part of a one-page A4 letter. But we are doing a lot. We're happy, if anybody's got any more suggestions, we're happy to look at doing more. But it's a national thing that the government leading on the comms of effectively.
It does seem a bit remiss that they've done that right at the last minute. But we will do what we can. We'll try and put that out through social media.
I'll speak to people at the engagement hub and see if we can work together to do anything.
And if you get any kickback, which I don't expect you to, because we're really keen on doing it, just please, you must have my email address or drew.mellor@bcpcouncil.gov.uk. Any kickback at all?
Because I think that would be a good use of the space and time.
Yeah, 100%.
And then maybe as a community we can just tell people, our neighbours and stuff, and remind them that they might need to.
Is there a charge when you sign on to the council page for it? It's free.
Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me, Harry. About the May voting coming up, you must have ID now.
Yeah.
What about these people that, like in the block that I'm in, some of them are a lot older than me, that are housebound, so they'll do a postal vote?
I think the postal vote is still.
Yeah, the postal vote
Still
doesn't
going
require.
ahead.
It doesn't
I mean,
require any ID, is that correct?
No.
It is a recommendation, because I agree with many in this room, is that I think it's too short notice for the change. I am really concerned that there'll be a large percentage of the electorate that would not get the message that if you switch your vote to a postal vote, then you don't require the ID. The ballot paper comes to your housebound resident. All they need to do is select their choice. This is about a week or so before the election. Hand it to a neighbour in a sealed envelope, pop it in a post box, and then it's a postal vote. No photo ID required on that because you're on the electoral roll, so therefore you've already registered that you are who you are. So that would be my recommendation. Anybody that's housebound, switch to a postal
Yeah,
vote.
I'll pass that round.
And your councillors are more than happy to help you with that.
Yeah, I'll pass that around to the 4 blocks of flats. Yeah.
Okay, that's all of the.
Sorry, Harry, before you move on, you talked about the engagement hub, the better engagement hub. It's only open 4 hours a week for kind of call-ins. I know the last time I was at the area forum meeting, people pointed out, you know, would there be some improvement, would it be open on the weekend?
I thought it was 12 hours a week.
From what I see,
I
2
still don't
hours
think
on
it's
Thursday.
enough.
I think they're going to be. I think this skills hub they mentioned there is taking place in that place, so it's going to be open a lot more.
Is it free to
I
rent?
haven't got the exact
space there
details.
then? Is it free to rent space there for meetings or for activities, schools?
I know we're having a community centre meeting on Saturday.
My understanding is that if it's of local interest and the space, which isn't huge, but if the space can accommodate a meeting, I think they would look favourably.
Yeah, they want it to be used by the community. They definitely want that to happen. The person to speak to is Mike, probably the main guy who's based in there, Mike Mannett.
Yeah, it's all this talk about sort of arts, crafts and arts clubs and things like that, but there's so many people in there that's not heard a word, and I just thought people being able to call in and inquire. Because when everybody sat round the table, it feels a little bit awkward maybe walking in and asking questions, interrupting, and thinking that Tina Kirkman and this other chap might be available on a bit more of a floating basis so that people, you know,
I'll check with Mike and see what the current situation is.
Yeah, well, if we can find out, we can put it out to our Facebook. I know there is some sort of thing, I'm not entirely
I mean, to be fair to Mike, he's fairly recently in post, so I'm sure he's trying to get across many
the one
different
point I
things
would
at the
want to
moment.
make out though is the last time they did a consultation campaign, out of 21,000 people eligible to vote, only 0.5% people responded. And obviously people want to improve on what's going on. 400 people filled in a form, you know, and I know that the towns fund people and the people sort of behind at different levels of the council would want to improve that. And being open a bit more often, so at least you get 1% of the population of our area.
There is a cost implication of that, and it's my
There always is,
understanding
but
that
I mean, the costs are
it's
being
my
spent
understanding
elsewhere,
that
aren't
the
they?
costs of running that Towns Fund office are coming out of the capital allocated to the Towns Fund.
So
So the
the lift
question
halfway
is-
to Bournemouth.
The question is, should BCP be adding to it for further engagement hours?
I mean, there was some criticism when they did that engagement that there weren't any night sessions. What we did as a forum holder, we held a session there, but it wasn't very well attended. But you know, there was quite valid criticism. I don't think it was open on Saturdays as well, which really they should have been to address it. Such working people,
Yeah, I
are
would
limited
hope
in
so.
when they can go. They can't turn up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, I entirely agree.
No, it's all
They
for
can
the
always do
officers
better. It's quite a tricky thing. And we obviously with the neighbourhood plan, we did a lot of community engagement. It's a tricky thing to do, and you need to do it well. You know, and,
Could it be possible to
not
look at the
acceptable.
running budget of that office? I might be wrong, but I believe my understanding is that it's the running costs. I know the rent is being paid for out of
The capital fund,
the
yeah.
capital fund, and I think some of the wages are. So because we're looking at a much broader scope potential for the office and indeed its staff, it's not unreasonable to ask for some ratepayers' money to supplement it, I would suggest.
Yeah, can we look into that? Yeah.
Okay, if we can just move on now to the main thing of the day with Leader of the Council, Councillor Drew Mellor, kindly agreed to attend this evening, and we've asked 4 questions, so we'll go those maybe about 10 minutes on each one, and then we can open the floor up and get about half the meeting with questions from the floor. What I'm going to try and do is use one microphone for questions, so just come round, put your hand up and we'll take questions that way so that we can hear it on the thing. I should have done that really with this first bit. So I'd like to welcome Councillor Drew Mellor. I'll just read out the first question, which was about council tax, which is how much will this rise by? Will it be levelled out over the entire conurbation? And what benefits will residents see in terms of any increased services?
Do you want me to come up?
Yes,
Yeah.
maybe use that one there, and if we get questions up.
Right, okay, well anyway, thank you very much for inviting me. The question was specifically about council tax, and so the process obviously is that we to have a full council meeting in February. The proposed budget is live tomorrow, and what we've worked through at the moment is we've had a cost of living massive issue this year, so setting the budget has been more challenging, I think, effectively than ever. So what we weren't aware of last February is, it's £25 million worth of cost that's gone through with the inflation rising, and £30 million next year. We've been able to get that into a balanced position and a surplus position this year, which is really helping next year. So the current thinking is council tax going in at 4.99%, so it's half the price of inflation. What we're trying to do between now and the budget setting work is actually improve that, see if we can get that down. I guess that's the answer. More than happy to take any questions on it. In terms of what extra we're getting, so the main thing we've had to do is to effectively balance the budget in terms of all of our costs have gone up, significantly, well over 10% in a number of areas. So where we charge for services, we've made sure we've made inflation at least charging there, so that effectively, if anybody's choosing to take a service, they're having to pay an inflation adjusted. That's significantly helped, because what we're trying to do is keep council tax low. What we've done for the last 2 years is some form of council tax freeze. So last year we have the normal 2% we're allowed to put council tax up. We froze. The year before that we harmonised, and the answer about is it equal across the board. So 2 years ago we did harmonise. So absolutely every council tax has been the same for the last 2 years across the conurbation. It will be again this year. So I think it's effectively, because of the decisions we've made, there's £22 million that hasn't been collected over the last 2 years. So it's more money in people's pockets. It's more difficult to do that this year, but we're still trying to reduce that council tax down. So key things we've invested in things like we call it cleaner, greener, safer. So CSAS officers, community support officers, extra CCTV, those types of things. We put a significant amount of money into that, and that's been a real focus. But our summer response has been something we've put a significant amount into over the last 2 years, and that means effectively people remember 2 years ago in lockdown when we had a significant influx of visitors, and there wasn't enough funding effectively and resources to do that. So that's done. So that's effectively what we're looking to do. The thing to also note really is this isn't a time where council has no overall control. So the group that I represent doesn't have a majority on the council. So effectively it's a genuinely full council decision where we will be having to go, and I can't speak with certainty about what full council will say because we're only a part of that group. Whereas last year we were a majority administration, so it's more clearly the budget that we wanted to put forward. So what we've done is we've tried to engage a number of councillors across the piece back from November through to I think it was last week. Budget cafes. We've done an engagement exercise, but 5-week engagement exercise we finished just before Christmas. We're trying to feed that in as well. So That's effectively where we are on council. But the paper comes out tomorrow. It goes for overview and scrutiny over the next couple of weeks, and decision. I think it's the 21st of February, around about that date. Yeah. Any parts of that question I didn't answer? I think I, yeah.
Seems calm enough.
Yeah.
Just see if anyone wants to ask any questions from them. Does anyone want to anything to say about council tax or give the answers? I mean, I think people have, see that there's going to be, obviously reductions in services because of, the difficulties the council's having. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think what we are absolutely trying to become more efficient in terms of what we do. So one of the reasons I put BCP together was to make it more efficient to run. So what we've been able to do, we're really quite fortunate in the fact that we've hit this cost of living crisis at a point when we'd already saved £50 million a year because we put the councils together. What we're trying to do, and we talked a bit about, what's your name?
Sherborne. You can call me Gary.
Gary, yeah. Gary, you're talking about, can we have micro, community projects where the community can get together and do stuff? That's very much what we're trying to, move towards. So effectively, how we can support the community to do more, the street cleaning bit, so we can come and be there with all of our tools and our people, but we get more done if the whole community comes in and does it. So
Could I quickly come back on
please
that?
do.
I mean, every time we kind of get extra funding...
Can I just give you the microphone?
Can everybody hear me?
Well, I've got the thing there as well, so it'd be good if
Okay.
it's on the internet.
So you've lost my track, Harry.
Yeah.
My question would be, we keep getting all this extra area-based funding. We've had SRB6, we've had neighbourhood management, talking specifically about Boscombe to address our sort of shortcomings and deprivation. And it's always the council that the accountable body in this matter. And I think after 20 years of witnessing all these extra millions, it tots up, I don't know, Jane, 25 million we've had above and beyond, whether it's European funding, central government, and it hasn't made an acre of difference to our circumstance. Our circumstances are declining, and the health issues and the deprivation is increasing, and the only common denominator I can see in that failing is that the accountable body is some officer at Bournemouth Borough Council, and they're normally ghosted in with very little understanding of our needs and challenges. So somehow the accountability always comes back to the council officers, and being transparent and selfless and those guiding principles seem to go out the window, and in favour somebody gets an expensive consultation job for 6 months and they lead us down another blind alleyway. So somehow I feel the town's fund and all the money that's being pumped in again, I see being sort of diverted and spent outside your own maps, outside your own areas. And I just feel that trust between us, the community, and the council needs stitching up. And I think if we really did want to actively support little micro hubs, again I say Churchill Gardens and that, new improved engagement.
I'm going to take the opportunity to reply to some of that, Gary, because
No worries, thank you.
I'm on the Town's Fund Strategic Board, as is Harry, as is Jane Kelly, and Councillor Farquhar has attended on a number of occasions. I don't think
I'm not.
Councillor Mellor is...
The deputy leader,
Yeah,
regional leader.
yeah. Phil Broadhead is involved, Councillor Mellor is not. I can't speak for previous monies. I do know what you're saying regarding, seems to be on Boscombe over the years would appear to have been awash with millions and millions of pounds.
Appear to be fact.
And I agree with you. And when I was asked to become involved as an active member of the community, was the reason I was asked to become involved with Towns Fund, I was very cynical. And on a number of occasions, and Jane and Harry, I'm sure, will agree with me, I have asked very hard questions about the finances. We have a board meeting coming up next month.
Which board though, please, with respect?
Towns Fund
Is that
Strategic
the
Board.
Boscombe Folkestone Neighbourhood Forum? 'Cause I get
No,
lost
it's
in
a
names.
Towns Fund.
There are
which currently has 23.1, well, was awarded 23.1 million. It's the one that will be doing the flats in Hawkwood Road, buying the Royal Arcade, building a community centre.
The master plan. My problem is, will it come to fruition?
Some of it,
Will
yes.
invest in this?
Some of it, yes. However, there are financial changes. We all know that. And it is my intention, ahead of the February meeting, to pose a question to the board. And you might have to excuse me here, Councillor Miller. I'm very concerned as to whether any of the Towns Fund capital will be siphoned off to plug gaps within the ratepayer budget.
Can I suggest you
So
ask
I can assure you that Harry and I have raised a special extraordinary meeting before when we weren't happy about due process, and I will do so again. So it's not all council officers, it's not all people on big salaries. I don't get paid a penny for
I
it.
understand and I
So my integrity is it honest? And can I say to you people here tonight, yes, I'm doing my best to hold it accountable. I ask about finances, I ask about salaries, I ask about rents. So there is accountability with the figures. I don't have them all to hand.
Well, sorry, Mark, but when the audit is published for the public to go down the town hall and examine, then we can find out ourselves. But I'll stop asking awkward questions. It's just one more. I read somewhere that some of the town's fund money is being spent bringing back to a particular lift with the red arrows.
No, that's not.
That's the recent
You
thing
just,
this week.
yeah, I mean, you're talking about the East Cliff lift.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so that's so basically, I mean, bluntly, it's actually, you know, some good news, isn't it? So this, you know, Boscombe has won, you know, £23 million.
Yeah, but my question was, will some of the money from the town's fund
exactly. And last week we won, you know, just under £19 million from government across the seafront, which includes a significant amount on East Cliff. So
those groins, they cost £600,000 a piece.
Yeah, which council funds and we do. But the point I'm making is, you know, we keep making a case to government, please can we have some money, and they keep giving us some money, which is great. So that's a good thing. Your point is how well is it spent, what's the governance around that, all of those things, and what have you seen change. There's, you know, so great. You know, the Towns Fund is a very well, run. It's got a huge amount of engagement in it, and I believe it will, work and have some impact. One of the we're going to talk about future places in a minute. How do you make real change, long-term change somewhere? Well, it's great. We can keep getting money from government, but we need to regenerate what we've got. We've got a load of assets across BCP. What we're trying to do is to work out how we can best use them, so that we can then not just make some money to invest in other areas, but we need to bring in the housing we need, bring in the economy we need, and effectively, I think your point around our council officers are the right people to be doing that. Well, in terms of governance, they're fantastic, and the integrity I believe is absolutely there. But in terms of having that mix of skill set and that commercial skill set, I don't think many, not often, that those skill sets are fully in councils. So what we've done is we've set up a separate team with some hugely high level, high caliber people, literally leading the country. We've got the ex-head of the civil service, who's Bob, I forgot his surname. Kerslake, one of the most famous people in government. But Lord Kerslake, as chairman of that, we've got Gail Mayhew, who was literally the government's commissioner for building better, building beautiful. So we've been able to get those people down here because this is a great place, and that is how you do long-term change. Just one last thing, just on that. We talked about we want some money from government. That's great, but what I didn't want to do when I became leader of the council was be solely reliant on running around Westminster, please can we have some money. So we brought forward in 2 budgets ago something called the Futures Fund, which is £50 million funded out of effectively the LGR dividend. So we've saved money by putting the councils together. We've put some of that into something called a Futures Fund. And in Boscombe, Anthony led on it for years and years. So we now contribute £2.6 million of our own money, effectively, to support the lifts at Potsdam. So we're not just bringing money from government, we're trying to do things ourselves, and that's a good example of it. When it gets done, it isn't down to us, but our money is there, which is so I ended up going a bit on a tangent.
Is that going to happen? What's the update on the lifts? Just quickly.
Apparently the latest is 2024, if you believe that, sort of middle of next year. So
The ongoing saga of the post down list. Let's hope that happens. I think we really need.
But if Andy hadn't been, pushing that, and if we hadn't come forward with future funds, that money would have likely been lost. So effectively, at least the money's there now, and now we need to push them to
Pressure needs to be kept up on that.
100%.
Does anyone have any question at the back of the room? Debbie,
Hello there. It was just in regards to council tax.
Yeah.
Within the council, is there any kind of a matrix where we can actually see for our area what we're getting in terms of benefits or value for money? Do you have kind of a?
We don't break our spending down by area, so we break our spending.
No, I'm sorry, I just meant in terms of the services, because I suppose when you look at some of the people in the room here, and I think what Gary was kind of saying was that sometimes in our areas, there's actually enough people in here who can have more of a decision-making voice in terms of how our council tax is spent, in terms of the type of services that we have. So I was wondering whether within the council, is there like kind of a map in terms of really, money versus value for money, service versus value for money?
Yeah, so I think the simple answer to your question is not specifically. What we do, what the council does do is it puts, in terms of services, what it's spending the money on, but it doesn't do it in terms of areas. So what we've done this year for the first time, I think I've mentioned it earlier on, we did a big 5-week engagement exercise where thousands of people come and tell us what the priorities were. Really interesting, report and that's coming back. So we're trying to get more, regular, consistent feedback in terms of what we should be spending the council's money on. We had to put, slightly flippantly, but the ballot box is the other way to do it. But we're happy to. What we're trying to do, and since BCP's inception, the two administrations is make more of consultation, make more of getting in front of people. So we're up for suggestions around how we can do more of that. Yeah.
Just run over.
Thank you. So, do you think the council maybe missing a trick about this? Because at the end of the day, if we don't know what the money's being spent on, it's difficult for us to then challenge it. And it works both ways. So it's looking at the figures which have been put forward, some of which are available. What's the percentage that goes, for instance, for social care and for child support?
Yeah, well,
it's significant. It's 73%.
Yes, exactly.
But that message is not getting out, and you get a whole lot of people turning around saying we should be spending more money on social care. Yeah. And in fact, it's a very high proportion of our council tax.
Yeah, it's about 70%. Yeah, you're right across children and adults effectively. So the budget that's going to go live tomorrow is an extra £25 million going into adult social care. It's an extra £15 million going to children's social care. These are well above the 5% increase in council tax. So what's happening is councils are having much more pressure around children's and adult services, which means there's much less money to do anything else. What I'm trying to say is that council tax isn't the solution to that. So we get an extra, I think it's about for extra 1% on council tax, we get an extra £2.1 million. And we've got £25 million of adult social care costs going up in year. It doesn't, council tax doesn't touch the side. So just to rely on that and then cutting all the other services, you quickly get to a point where you've got nothing that isn't statutory. Yeah. So that's why we're trying to come in and say, well, actually, let's use our assets. Let's try and work out how we can, use people like Future Places to help us, regenerate the place, keep assets for the long term, but also make some money out of them now, so that we can fund council services through being a bit more commercial. Because council tax, bluntly, doesn't touch the side. So that's why we're trying to be really aggressive.
And you need to do more with less.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
The flip side of that is we've also been hearing about the cost savings and money savings being made by council. There's a lack of transparency about that as well. From my so when did Michelle come in? Michelle came in supposedly to actually get economies of scale to actually drive those efficiencies. Fell apart. We now got the BCP with the amalgamation of councils. When was that? 2019 June.
Yeah.
we're still actually in integration, trying to work out how we use technology systems.
We are.
One council's getting used across the whole body, and that's such a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Why is it taking so much time?
Yeah, so it's a huge project. Since BCP's inception, we've already saved, so the Borough of Binghamton has already saved over £50 million, of recurring savings each year.
Where is the transparency? So just a number.
Yeah, fine. No, but it's in, well, okay, so it actually is in the budget report. It was in last year's budget report. Because it's 49.7 million. So that is, so that is a public document. We can take people through that. There's a plan to save another, effectively, just under £50 million over the next 3 years, and that's what I think that's the second part you're talking about, which is the computer systems integration across the board. And once you've got that, then we're able to, sort of make some procurement savings, but also some headcount reductions because it's effectively more efficient. So it's undeniable. Admittedly, you need to see it. In fact, they are there. They are in the public domain. That the BCP Council has saved us money. It's saved £50 million, and it's still got a lot of savings to come over the next 3 years. And that again is all itemised in the budget that's going on.
And how do we find out who those people are accountable for? And how do we manage it?
Well, ultimately, so we're I mean, there's quite a number of councillors in there. I think we're nearly called for a council meeting with Bob and Malcolm at the back as well. Local councillors are, I'm really happy to answer any questions on it. Drew Mellor at bcpcouncil.gov.uk, far away. If we hadn't done it, we would have been in absolute dire straits because we've got the budget we've got tomorrow as it stands. We want. That's why we're desperate to work over the next 6 weeks to do more, because we're desperate to do more with less, and that's what we're trying to do.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I've been struggling to find these figures now for 10 months, going through my councillors. So it's interesting to hear you say that.
Yeah.
I think what you said is if I email you directly, you'll actually help us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And I am technically also the leader of council, but I'm also responsible for portfolio holder for transformation as well. So I'm happy to take you through that.
That's good news. Maybe you could share the news with us.
Yeah.
This is a criticism of unitary councils. The model adopted with BCP, albeit that perhaps you had to allow Christchurch to have a town council.
Yeah.
From what I can see, the Dorset council model, although it is slightly more expensive because you've got town councils, you have considerably better services. I mean, the roads are better. You go somewhere like Swanage, you've got plenty of toilets and all the rest of it. And it seems to me that sticking to that unitary model and not allow, I mean, for example, obviously you could break up the area into Boscombe Town Council or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, what concerns me about the unity thing is it's a bit of a power thing. I mean, in other words, because you're sticking to that model, I think you're, as you say, you cop it for social care basically. If you allow town councils, they do not cop it for social care, so there's more money. There's actually more money around. Okay, it's marginally more expensive. So I just wonder what your view.
Yeah, no, it's really just a very interesting question. I mean, I guess to some extent the debate was had, wasn't it, in 2019? Because we are where we are now.
Not really, but that's okay.
Yeah, but effectively, so we have the same model as Dorset. So we're both unitary councils, effectively, and have adult social care. Yeah.
But individual places are all got town councils. Blandford.
Yeah, well, there are a number of them, and there's a lot more parish councils in Dorset.
There are.
There's a lot more.
But because of that,
I'll answer your question.
Because of that, they have far more money. And
Well,
they appear to have better services, what I can see. I mean, you talk about council tips. I mean, you've got Wareham, you've got Swanage.
So Dorset's got the second highest council tax in the country. So Dorset County Council, second highest council tax in the country. So if Christchurch is a good example because that was effectively was in Dorset. And again this is within last year's budget report and it's in the one tomorrow. It would have been a typical bounty house would have been £260–70 more if it stayed in Dorset than it is now. So effectively, Christchurch council taxpayers are paying over £1,000 a term less than they would have been under Dorset. I think you can make the argument they're getting better services. What we found in Christchurch is street cleansing. So Christchurch were getting significantly less street cleansing than Bournemouth or Paul were. So we've had to actually put more money into levelling up, you know, street cleansing in Christchurch where they weren't doing it, and we managed to do that, and it's a lot cheaper. What I believe, you know, that's cheaper, is because having a two-tier system is inefficient. We've proven it by the fact we can all, you know, take out £50 million already in efficiencies. You know, do you need, you know, do you need a Bournemouth pool and a Christchurch, you know, chief executive of a council, and you know, what do you need? Well, so we're making it more efficient, but you know,
I accept the savings. I mean, there could be further savings with you amalgamating services with Dorset Council. I accept that.
Yeah.
But the principal argument is that, as you said, 70% of the budget is spent on social care, and the reason being is because it's unitary authority.
Well, somebody's got to spend that money, haven't they? So you've either got an upper tier council that's responsible for social care, and a second tier, you know, council that does effectively, you know, parks and a bit of a district council model, or you roll it into one. The point I'm making is it's more efficient to have one organisation rather than two.
You say that, but from what I see of the wider Dorset model, they've got. I mean, admittedly, they are paying more.
It's more expensive.
They are paying more, but they're not, because the town councils aren't constrained by that social care levy side of things. They can do a lot more. So that's all. I understand the point. I don't think it's an efficient model, but you know.
Okay, well, that's an interesting thing. Got another question over here, and we'll come to you.
Okay. I'm bringing this up because I don't know if it's going to be mentioned, and I want to make sure that it is. Our biggest asset is our seafront and the ocean. Brings people here, tourism, and also when there are problems, they have health costs, tourist costs, etc. What is happening? Now the thing is, the water people, it's a company. I mean, I know you had meetings, the council and the water company, about the sewage being dumped in the water, and but we weren't allowed to go. I mean, I was really interested, but I wasn't, you know, public weren't allowed to go to the meeting. I'm really not sure what's happening. I know that all over the world there are problems, and you want to bring more and more people to Boscombe to live here and to holiday here, but we have to be able to deal with the stuff because, you know, I do litter picking. I'm a Dorset devil, and whatever they say, I mean, the stuff that was coming up on the beaches, it's not good. When I moved here in '78, it was you know, it wasn't like that. We've got a lot more people, and these services need to upgrade the plumbing, the whatever. So please, at some point tonight, can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely can do. I think it's obviously the sewage is not a council. You know, it's not in our gift. We work really closely with the water companies who do that. You know, across the board, our beaches are some of the cleanest beaches in the UK in terms of factually in terms of the water quality. What we can do, if it would be helpful, something you're particularly interested in, we can I can look into effectively what happened in that meeting and let you know. But you know, we put the pressure we can on on the water companies to keep doing what we should be doing. We have been doing. We've been in those meetings. Mark Anderson, our portfolio holder for the environment, has been in those meetings and negotiating, discussing with them. So,
sorry, who is that?
Mark Anderson is the portfolio holder for environment.
Okay, because something I want to know is, why is it that we always get figures about, we've got really good figures for this, but ordinary people know what they experience. And what used to happen is, if your kid cut itself, you go quickly, go in the sea, clean it off. Now, people get infections, and some of them quite serious infections, going in the sea. So I really want to know more about this, and I will contact him.
Yeah, all through me as well, if that's easier. So
and please don't, I mean, that is a really important
absolutely right. Yeah, there's some things that councils are technically responsible for, and some things that they're not. That isn't something that we're technically responsible for. What we're responsible for is cleaning up the beach, and you actually said the best asset was the seafront. That's the second best asset. their best assets are communities and our people, and people like, you know,
Yeah.
people who are doing those community experience anyway. So that's great. We need to try and encourage and do more of that. What we've done, you know, we've put millions of extra pounds into the seafront and our summer response to make sure, you know, there are loads more bins, there are loads more people there to do cleaning up. There's loads more enforcement generally across the seafront. So we put, you know, it's effectively £2.5 million in for the first year, an extra £1.6 million in last year on the seafront summer response, because we completely agree with you. But do contact me, and I will put you in touch with Mark to give you a more full answer about the water companies and sewage.
That would be good. Last summer I became so depressed about it, I actually went away for 2 months to disappear from here. And that isn't because I'm fanciful, it's what I was experiencing. So good figures, I don't know where they come from, but there is a problem.
Yeah, agreed, and that's why we put so much extra money into it.
Thank you for bringing that up. There was a question we had thought about putting on the agenda. I'm taking a question here in a minute. But I think, okay, I'll come on. But I think maybe that Nancy, we could put that on a potential subject we could look into, maybe get the water companies in
and Mark would
Brilliant.
definitely to come as well. Mark Hanson
get
as well.
Mark on as well.
Perhaps as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So if I could just add, Jackie, to what you've been saying, absolutely it's a problem. Mark Anderson actually has told us recently that one of the benefits of the 5G enablement and the ducting, you know, that we have the high-speed Wi-Fi that we're having down to the pier, and 5G enablement, and it's going to go along the front a little bit, both ways as well. One of the benefits of that, because it's all very well having all this wonderful wizzy Wi-Fi, but we want to know how it's going to help us, don't we? They will be able to put, and they're going to put, on the end of the pier, a sensor, so that the quality of the water can be almost consistently monitored, and the results of that can be sent back all the time, so that that sort of thing can be really known by people and not sort of guessed at, or, you know, somebody goes and does a little dip every now and again. It will be digitally monitored, so I think that's good news.
Good.
Definitely, we'll bring that up later in the year. We will pursue that in a bit more detail in a Boscombe forum.
Yeah, there should be some way of reporting as well, you know, when people experience it.
Well, keep your eyes peeled. I'll let you know when we
generally on reporting things, bcpcouncil.gov.uk/report it, and then you can report anything through that. Yeah.
Hello. 2 questions. One is the seafront, albeit it's only held once a year, the air show.
Yeah.
But as one of many disabled people in wheelchairs, scooters, when it's all lined up with the army and all the food and there, we find it very hard to find a drop point.
Okay.
Because there's so much crowds on that small bit of pavement.
Yeah.
That there's only 2 areas that I can get down to Bournemouth. Onto Redland Square at the Bournemouth pier. Is there any possibility that some more drop curbs can be put in along the seafront?
Well, I mean, drop curbs, you know, temporary drop curbs are quite easy things to do, you know, so for sure we can look into it. I'm not, you know, and you know, I wasn't aware, you know, that there was a particular problem. I know it's busy, but you're telling me
I've reported it to the local office at the bottom of Boscombe Pier.
Yeah, I'll personally pick that up.
Every year.
And I can come back through.
The line train goes off when it's busy events. So the whole provision for people with disabilities.
All I've been told is that we'll put it forward, and then I hear nothing.
What I'll do, I'll look into it. It's really important. You know, it's absolutely something we're going to want to do, because, you know, accessibility and inclusion and all. You know, we've done massive strides in that over the last few years. I don't have your details, but Nancy's kindly taking some minutes. So I was about to scribble in my book, but and then I'll come back through Nancy, and we can share what we've done.
I mean, obviously, none of the council have to don't witness it, but when we're trying to get through large crowds, and we're getting not just tuts, we're getting verbal, where we get verbally abused.
It's a great thing that we've got people who want to come here, and we had a real choice when it was cancelled. Do we want to bring it back or not? We've stood in front of it and said, look, this is great for the area, it's great for the economy, it's great for people, but it's got to work for everybody, hasn't it, as well? So I'll take your point.
Right, and now with the regeneration of Boscombe, my point is, I went into the local office in Boscombe to look at, and apparently he showed me one plan that was put forward some 2 or 3 years ago, and apparently there's a new one, so there's 1 or 2. Have you now decided which one you're going for in regards to?
Well, it's not. I presume what you mean is the Towns Fund master planning work, and that's not something for me. That's something for the Towns Fund, and takes it back.
Yeah.
So I think there's community consensus in terms of what that's going to.
But where I've seen the plans, both of them now, it's which involves the back of Sainsbury's, and there's going to be a community hall and so forth, regenerate the old arcade. But how I look at it, it's making the surrounding area of the high street really plush. But what is the council going to be doing to generate more people to open more shops that are right through from Folkestone, right through Boston? And they're closing down. In fact, a very good friend of mine has given up his shop actually this week, because he's down Folkestone area, and he just couldn't afford the rents and rates anymore. Yeah, because it's low,
Yeah, I understand. It's a massive problem nationally, isn't it, in terms of retail and how it's changed and how COVID has really sort of moved that forward. A couple of things we're doing. I'll come back to the regeneration piece, because how do you make it work long term? Well, you need to build, the home, you need to get more density, more people in, 15-minute walkable. So all those services, you do the backlands, and then people spend money on the high streets. So we've made regeneration and commercial and social regeneration a real important thing. We've now got a team of people to deliver that. So I think long term, that's part of the answer.
When you're going to be putting up the council taxes, then the rates in the rent this coming year, right, for 23-24, that's not giving people that are interested to open a business or any
If we
kind.
could just finish, be happy. You don't need to tell you what else we're doing, other than just regeneration. Yeah, so what we've done, we put we've got a lead member for High Street Rejuvenation. We did 3 trials, so one was in Kingston, one was in Broadstone, and one was in Highcliffe, really successful. But we've gone in and actually worked with local communities to do stuff on the High Street. That's work. What's come out of that in terms of the next phase, and we're looking for more high streets to do that with, is, and I'm not sure people will know that Kinglands in Poole, brilliant success, where they've actually given 2 years free rent to a number of shops and independent traders effectively. So we're trying to do that and see how the council can, where there are empty shops, or how we can come in and facilitate and put a fund in. So when I talked about the budget, one of the things we're trying to bring forward now, in terms of to improve the budget, will be coming out tomorrow, is a town centre and high street fund, which we can then use to support, opening shops and supporting people. A lot of that's about independence. If we get good local independent shops to come in, Bournemouth Town Centre is an interesting one, because the high street's changing. So it's stuff like, if you look at Bobby's, which was a Devon store, now it's got an art gallery, shops. It's got cafe space, etc. So it's about trying to support the town centres and the high streets to do more, but slightly differently.
I'm sorry.
So hopefully more. I agree with you. We need to do more. We try to.
The gentleman behind me said, how do you get more people into positions of making decisions?
Yeah.
Somebody said something about how do we get more for less. The Localism Act that came in 2010, which enables people, small groups, micro businesses, like you say, to bid to manage council-owned properties. And I want to know how you personally feel about, will the council kind of promote that legislation?
We're just about to double down on it bluntly, and James leading on, James personally leading on a lot of that. So we've got a load of assets, we've got a load of buildings across the conurbation. We can't afford to run all of them, and we don't, anymore, effectively. So we're looking to do two things. One, if community groups want to take on, buildings, or can do more with buildings or some of our assets, great. It's fine. We're looking to, regenerate and use other ones to make money or to provide services differently as well. So we're up for community coming in. It's a big piece of work we're doing called asset-based community development. It's about where you've got volunteer groups, Dorset Devils, whatever, a number of different volunteer groups who come in and can actually run something really well. Well, then we should support them to do it, not put barriers in their way. We need to support them. And one of the other things we're doing with that is we're bringing forward a fund that will effectively, it's a community infrastructure fund. So £10 million where we can say to people, a good example, we've been speaking to a number.
Churchill Gardens is a good example. Gentrification,
I'll
regeneration.
give you a good example. So we're working with exploring something with a Sea Cadets group. So they've got amazing work, works really well in terms of particularly deprived demographics. It's a really important cohort of people, do a brilliant job, and they can get 60 people into their building. And if they said, well, they've also got 70 people on their waiting list. So if we can facilitate, we can give them some money effectively, very similar to the Futures Fund piece of work that Andy's got £2.6 million off of for the list. If we can support them, then they can do more with that. So
localism is a little bit more refined than that.
Well, there's detail in that. I agree, yeah, for sure. If you look at what's happening with neighbourhood forums, neighbourhood plans, or there's some really good stuff happening that we support that all day long. The more stuff is in the community, the better. The better quality it is.
I saw a map recently of the southwest red dots, the way it goes.
Yeah.
And over that side, lots of sort of localism, community managed projects. The more you come over towards Bournemouth, it disappears. Paul, there's some, but you come to Bournemouth and there's one or two, and I'm just wondering.
We're really up for getting some more stuff in the community. We put a massive thing about this asset-based community development stuff. So we talk about what look at what's strong in a community rather than what's wrong.
I had a look on the website, the council's sort of capital management page, and it says lists of assets, blah blah blah.
We've got an asset transfer policy coming through, which talks really strongly about the looking more of it. So we've only been here for 2 years, effectively.
Sorry, who's running that?
Which I've talked about a number of bits. The community
it's about to do with community engagement and community actually being involved in decision making.
James our lead effectively in terms of asset-based community development. James does that. Something it's what we're trying to be is make that a real point of difference in terms of saying, well, actually, how can you go further and faster? And it is things like if we have a building, if it's the right thing for the community, but also what I've not seen anybody else in the country doing is they have a fund as well on top of which is our money, which we can put in to support communities and great groups. Bournemouth BMX, amazing.
But going back to the doing more for less, if you encourage more groups to take control of an asset, then they'll be able to raise their funds independently.
I couldn't agree with you more. 100%. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take one more question at the back and then maybe move on to one of the other questions.
Yeah, great.
What I wanted to ask is, how are visitors allowed to? How are they supposed to get to the beach now when Hawkwood Road is going? How do they actually get? I've seen the buses which are empty because there's no bus route. They have to queue like everyone else. All the cars going down. So how are they going to get to the beach?
Well,
what's the plan? Now they're getting rid of. A lot of people do learn to park in Hawkwood Road, but that's going to be built on, isn't it?
So we've got.
So what's going to be left? Well, how are they going to get to the beach now after that?
Well, sort of last summer, there's enough people managed to get to the beach.
They don't. They're queuing for. It's not very good for air pollution neither. The queues to. Have you ever been down there in the summer?
Have I been to the beach in the summer?
Down
the
beach to Boscombe Beach, that road?
Yeah, of course I have. Yeah.
So have you seen the queues of traffic?
Yeah. Okay.
What is the plan?
Well,
their side roads. They drive and drive and drive around all the side roads, which I live in one of them. Yeah. And it's going to get worse. If you get rid of Hawkwood Road car park, how are people to get to the seafront?
I don't think you're clearly upset in terms of what actually is happening in terms of Hawkwood Road. What we've done also 2 years ago wasn't happening. We put in place a park and ride.
Which I know, I see all those empty buses in the summer. I saw them all. They're all empty because they have to queue with all the cars. There's no bus lane down there. I said it'd be a farce, and it is.
Okay, great.
Park and ride is woefully underused.
I know, because they want queues for the cars. There's not a bus lane. You're never going to get a bus lane there. It's not wide enough for a bus lane. So it's never going to work as long as the cars go to drop people off.
Yeah. Okay,
it's just a fact, and they're queuing for that tiny little car park.
Thank
and now you're getting rid of another one, Hawkwood Road. And I've heard there's lots of arguments in the Sovereign Centre car park with people parking there, not to use the Sovereign Centre, but to get all the way to the beach. So you're getting rid of the other beach. I don't understand what the plan is. How are people at that? The beach is Boscombe's asset, isn't it? Number 1 asset.
Car park.
So where's the car park going to be? Where's the car park?
The beach is the car park.
Where is the new car park going to be? After you remove Hawkwood Road?
Well, we're perfectly happy to talk in terms of get you up to speed on what actually is happening in terms of Hawkwood Road.
Because I see the buses last year.
It doesn't look like you and I are going to agree with you, so perhaps we should move on. Yeah.
So what's the answer then?
Can I just quickly ask something? Back to the...
They built, sorry, can I just say one more thing? They built on the car park, which was in front of, isn't it flats you've got there now? You've got rid of that car park, where people used to park.
Barrett's development, yeah.
Yeah, you got rid of that car park.
Across Bournemouth, there's more parking spaces than there has been. So
where in Boscombe are there? Where are the new car parking spaces in Boscombe?
Yeah, I mean, we have discussed. I mean, I completely agree that the parking
Because
is an
people
issue.
go up and down the side streets, driving up and down, air pollution.
Yeah, we get it more. We'll get more
It's
issues.
getting worse and worse. If you get rid of that car park, where are they going to park?
Rachel, would it be helpful if if it's very difficult while they're queuing, I agree that does happen, it must be very frustrating, in fact I know it is, because I've seen it.
I've not talked about that for ages, but what's happening
If
now?
more people use the park and ride, there would be fewer cars queuing to get down there.
But no,
They are reintroducing a bus route as well.
But I've seen it there. I've seen it last summer. I saw all those buses, and they're all almost empty. 1 or 2 people maximum. Because people learn that those buses have to queue with everyone else.
Last summer.
They're not quicker. They would worse because they have to wait all the cars.
Yeah.
And then there was one brown.
It's a farce. It's a stupid idea. How much money did they make? Nothing. Must have made a huge loss.
We're
Must have
going
been really costly.
to just move on now from that, but that is an issue. We have tackled parking several times before in the last year. It is a big issue for Boscombe.
What are they doing then?
Well,
To make Boscombe more accessible to all the tourists that want to go to the beach. How are they going to get there?
Well, it probably won't be as popular, will it? I mean, I think you probably hit the nail on the head, I think.
I think we're going to, it's going to be an ongoing problem. It's going to need to be looking at as we go forward. I mean,
years ago, I was told there used to be 2 car parks along the seafront before the cafe the restaurant was put there. There was a car park on the left at the seafront, and there was a car park on the right. And there was a car park behind as well. But now there's only 1 car park on the right. They got rid of the one on the left, they put a restaurant in front of it. They put flats along the other one.
we have lost a lot of
And now we're
parking
losing the
on
one
the
there, so how are
seafront,
people going to...
We're going to have to move on with that now because we want to get some other subjects tackled. But parking is an issue, and as we've discussed, it's a very emotive issue that we have discussed.
Going up and down all those roads.
That we have discussed in the past. So,
Can I ask one question?
Okay,
Harry?
before we go on.
Yeah, going back to when you were talking about water quality and such, and I heard you remark that your administration has only been in charge of BCP for 2 years, but it coincides with the Conservative government in Westminster, and there is a lot of stuff in the news about the water companies and allowing draining into rivers when the certain flood things are reached.
Yeah.
And surely, I would imagine, I don't know the details, but I would think that some environmental laws need to be tightened up. And I wondered, as a Conservative administration here with the Conservative government in Westminster, and I know Mr Elwood, for example, I did email him about all the congestion with the tourist parking and such like during lockdown, which he kindly replied. Are you in contact with him to lobby for better water control so that we can protect not just the beachfront but the rare Dorset and Chalk rivers and such like, which are incredibly rare habitat, and you know Dorset is famed as a county for its beauty. So you should be using a lever to listen.
No, I agree, and I think there is some utility. Local Conservative Council, Conservative government. Tobias is working on that. Mark Anderson is working on that. We do, and we have lobbied.
So you're talking to Tobias about it?
Absolutely. And just on top of that, you said we were the first. I mean, it's slightly a tangential point, but we were the first local authority in the country to put biodiversity net gain into planning. So now, when people want to build anything, they need to make sure we've got a biodiversity net gain, more positive. Because we our best thing, other than our communities, is our natural environment. We need to protect it. So we're bluntly we're going further and faster than most local authorities. But you're right, we need to.
You seem to have a natural advantage at this moment in time, and you should be using it on that.
And I completely agree.
We will be tackling the water situation. If we put in one of the questions, we maybe just move on to school capacity. I mean, obviously relevant for building a lot of housing in Boscombe, but also I think it's just the whole conurbation of schools and things. So what is the current capacity for schools? Can pupils have places at their school of choice? And how will any of the new housing affect this? I mean, and really, what is the strategy for the school system?
Well, it's a really interesting one, and there's two, depending on the age of the cohort of children, there's two different answers. So in primary education at the moment, we've had a really low birth rate, coming through. So what's coming through now is a much lower birth rate. So effectively, there's much more. You've got a very, very strong likelihood of getting your first choice if you're coming through the primary system now, and we think that's going to get better because there's going to be excess capacity. It starts to be a problem is we've got too much capacity in the primary system over the next 5 or 6 years. We've got a peak in terms of population of the last 2 years in senior school, effectively. So there is a pinch on places there, but in 2 years that starts to unwind and go back down again. So we have, because of a lower birth rate, we have capacity in the schooling system long term. What we need to do, and what we do is when people large scale redevelopment, then obviously we plan that in, and there needs to be funds available, so like seal funding and that type of support to go into school infrastructure. But currently we've got a 2-year issue at the upper end, in terms of across BCP, in terms of those places, but at the primary end, it's not a problem effectively. So that's a technical answer. I'm happy to take any other questions.
Do you have any questions about schools or anyone? I know one of my son was in school. One of the things that they did was they were cutting out the subjects he liked, really more creative subjects, were being cut out in order to to sort of focus the resources and the teachers into the sort of main mathematics and everything else. But I mean, really, are we doing our children a disservice? We're not giving them potentially what we might have had as children.
And it's I think there's we heard recently, didn't we, about the importance of maths, studying maths for longer, and how that is relevant in certain new jobs and coding and those types of things. So I think having those basics done properly is really valid. I run a number of engineering businesses. It's slightly different than arts effectively, but we've made a big, and our whole industry's made a big play in terms of we need to be able to create more vocational skills and training as well, and they're coming through with the T levels, which are enabling more people to take a more vocational route, and that's more about more about arts and etc. But so I think more is happening on that effectively, and trying to get more people to stay in education longer as well. I think that's it's ultimately a good thing. But you're right, you've got to have flexibility.
Some of the interesting things in the school curriculum, you know, with arts and, you know, so obviously I have a business which deals with arts and musicians, and, you know, a lot of them have resources and community spaces and workshops and things where they found their voices and their inspiration. And when you're cutting things like that out of where do other children just falling through the gaps and having to kind of...
30 odd years ago when my children were at school, and that was in Purbeck as opposed to in the town, Dorset had the lowest, I don't know what you call it, but the amount given per head to primary school children in England. The lowest amount, because it was something 300 and something pounds per head, and in other areas it was up to 700 pounds per head. Have you any idea what those figures are now?
Yes, I mean we still get less. You know,
because it was based because Dorset was largely agricultural.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to 30 years ago, you know, in terms of what that is, but you know, the representation we've made for a number of years has been around. So much money has gone into sort of inner city London or inner city type schooling. So we are, you know, worse off effective than sort of more inner city, you know, technically deprived areas. So that's still a fact. The government are levelling it. It's called a fairer funding formula. You know, they are levelling that up, but you know, we still get less money per school head than a child in Hackney, for instance.
This is a subject which is very dear to my heart because I've suffered all my life because I was educated in the 1960s when creativity was not worth anything. Creativity is just as important as academia, and it's not fair when people are talented in creative ways. It isn't fair to deny them an education in that. I'm sorry, I'm getting very emotional about this. It's every bit as important as knowing how to add up, knowing how to write. It should have equal status. There is no doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah, and I agree. And you know, in terms of what we've tried to do in the last 2 years, part of it was a COVID response. In terms of we wanted the places to be a bit more lively and and energised and positive. So we, you know, Festival Coast Live, we put.
It should be a main curriculum subject.
I completely agree. But from a you know, what are we in control of? You know, we've said we need to put more money into culture. We need to put more money into supporting sort of events and festivals. We've done that. We're working hard with the Arts Council at the moment to see if we've got the capacity to put the 2029 Capital Culture bid in. So I agree on a national level.
If you don't offer a creative education, then you won't get people.
Yeah.
They won't have the training to do that.
I agree. And you know, and the fund we're talking about in terms of community groups, you know, but these can be culture-based community groups. We just want where people can get engaged in communities. You've got volunteer groups that are doing amazing things to support people to do more and live better lives. We want to support them, not get in the way. So that's really what we're trying to do. I'm not, you know, the education secretary, but I would absolutely.
I think, you know, there is a thing with the local schools. My son was at Avonbourne, and they cut all the interesting subjects, the arty subjects, and you know, maybe that's out of your control. But you know, are we offering any other things within our spaces to children who are really being failed?
It's just the answer I've given already. Effectively, we you know, what can we control? We can only control what we can do. But we are putting money into culture, more money. I think if you look at some of the stuff that's happened with capital culture bids, you know, it makes massive economic sense as well, because you know, they really do drive regeneration. But you create a culture of being of art and inspiration and being a community, and art is often the thing that really connects the community in whatever way, shape, or form it is. So you know, we get the value of culture, and we get the value of how that links to regeneration as well. So I couldn't agree with you more, Blondie.
Okay, well I'll move on to
just as sort of, I don't know, it maybe seems a small point, but I don't think the council has much control over what's happening with school capacities now. I mean, essentially, education's been privatised. It's a load of little businesses, and they'll set their capacity at whatever makes their bottom line look best. But so I don't really think I can sort of say anything and expect anything from BCP about school places.
Well, we're a statutory consultancy. We sit in there and we plan sort of school places. you know, what you're talking about, I think it's multi-academy trust, effectively it's still trust, it's not privatised, you know, that these,
it's not called privatised, but
well,
it's
I would disagree. The local authority running schools, or you know, the schools running schools, you know, ultimately it's, you know, the standards, the number of good schools are increasing, but you know,
well, that's debatable if you speak to statisticians at the Office of National Statistics. But no, I mean, I don't hold any, if you like, bad feelings about what the council does about school places, because I don't actually see that they've got very much.
We've definitely been moved out of education. You know, that's a fact.
That's a fact. But where there are points that maybe could be addressed with a little bit more urgency and I guess more resources, is with that small group of children who are really socially disadvantaged. I mean, at the moment, it's absolutely incredible what a poor service these children are getting from social services in BCP. And I really worry about what that's going to mean for them. And it's only a small number of them.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And you're actually, and you're right, effectively as well. So, you know, in terms of, you know, children's services, we've got significant improvement journey to do since we've now put 3 budgets together as the leader of the council, and we've effectively doubled the amount of money that's gone into children's services. So I said another £15 million this year, £12 million, which is over £40 million in 3 years, which is doubling the budget. So we have doubled the budget into children's services, and most of that goes into children's social care. So we are, you know, like materially putting our money where our mouth is, because we have to. And you've got to look after, you know, every aspect of society. But if anybody needs it more than disadvantaged children, you know, come and tell me. But you know, that's effective. We said that's our #1 priority area, and we've doubled the amount of money going into it.
I've got to go, Mr. Chairman of the council. I'm just as passionate as Nancy about the arts and things, and I think we've got poverty of access to arts, culture and creativity across the board. And when you do reassure us that money's being pumped into it, it always ends up with the same people. Carol Ward, the Old Schoolhouse, Bournemouth Emerging Arts Fringe, and they normally cater for the university students while they're down here and residents of the borough for a couple of years. But again, I go back to that, we're missing the target, that the local artists from Boscombe has always been held up as being creative. We're just facilitating Bournemouth Arts University and the college and local people who are looking for space to create, work together and collaborate, all those things that make it happen. And we've got TJ Hughes in the middle of the precinct, God knows how many thousands of square feet, and then a lot of money being pumped into the old schoolhouse for a new mezzanine, new radiators. And again, that's for people who want a hot desk and share. And we've got buildings where you could make decisions, but because you hand them over to the same suspects every year, year in, year out, we don't get a look, we don't get any say in.
You know,
hence us fighting very hard for a community centre, Gary, that can be
but
open
that's
for
years
all.
down the line. Our need is immediate. We've got people desperate for things to get
I
involved.
agree with you, didn't I? You know, 10 minutes ago when we were talking about the same thing, in terms of saying we've got a policy coming through the council where we're saying if you've got buildings you want and need and have identified in their surplus, we're ready to, you know, there's literally a policy gone through the council about that. And on top of that, we're bringing forward a, you know, if groups, it doesn't have to be the same one suspect, can benefit from that. Could be anybody.
We've got a building in Churchill Gardens, which is the ideal. It's just about to be demolished because we've got another master plan down there with another element of the council making decisions for us. But where, you know, and they'll go, well, 60 people said it should be knocked down, and we go, well, 300 people said it should be saved. We've got the social capital, you've got the big promises, but somehow we're not gelling, the capacity's being missed out. And if you want to get more for less,
Which is, I can't tell you how many times I could say I agree with you in a different way. We have to, and what we are doing is more than we've ever done before. So let's carry on working together. Let's have some more faith with it, and let's support each other.
But if I point out that our whole art schedule for this year has already been planned, dusted, organised, commissioned, all of those statistics that you read out earlier about what's happening, you know, in Boscombe this year. It's already been done, and people don't get a look in from the start. And I think controlling the arts and creativity, lots of governments have a problem with that. They don't like people to express themselves. Controlling the arts probably quite important, and not giving kids the opportunity.
I think in terms of the Towns Fund specifically, that hasn't actually been. It was just laying out the skeleton of there's only 17 of these, so that they haven't
I have
been.
it on good authority that the checks have already been sent, that the artists have already been.
I'm not aware of that. I would have known that.
I've got to go.
Sorry, I just wanted to just ask about, in terms of local councillors and schools, especially the academies, what are your relationships normally with the schools, and how do you engage with them, and are you, do you have any say in terms of the decisions that they actually make?
Yeah, so it's a couple of things. You find a number of local councils, governors of schools. So even if they're not LEA governors, local education authority governors anymore, because the trust is still the governor. I'm a governor of 2 schools, and essentially, we encourage councillors to really get engaged. There's no sort of statutory responsibility for a councillor to engage with the school, but most councillors and good councillors are engaged in their communities, and schools are often at the heart of that. So it's true, Matt. We have a responsibility in terms of the standard of education across the board, and in terms of placements as well as a council. So at schools, so councils get involved in that regard as well. But what we did have 10 years ago was local education authority running schools. Now they've put multi academy trusts. If you get a really good trust, somebody's running really good schools, you give them more schools to run, and it's working. The amount of good schools is significantly improving. So it's changed. The council responsibility has changed, but effectively most councillors will be governors of schools. Yeah. And I'm governor too.
Quick question about it's about Churchill Gardens. The old there's a new Joy Cafe in the centre, isn't there? It's got a community area at the end, but that is tiny. That was shrunk. According to the librarians in Boscombe Library, if you saw the original plan, it was supposed to be a lot bigger, and the community area is so small. There's so little you can do in it.
Yeah.
So why?
So do you think it'd be a good idea if we offered up more of our buildings to the local community?
The old Joy Cafe. Why is that being demolished? It's got such a big space. It's there already. You can just use it tomorrow.
I'm not going to get involved and talk to the individual specifics of projects and what people do. We've got reams of people who are doing it.
The Churchill Gardens. It's got loads of people living around it, and it's right on their doorstep, which they could use for aerobics. And can you try and do aerobics in the Joy Cafe community?
Do you think it's a good idea that we should use more of our surplus buildings to give them over to community groups?
That's
Great,
one,
thank
yes.
you, because that's exactly what we're doing. Do you think it's a good idea we should give more money to community groups to go and invest in their facilities? Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah.
Great, that's what we're doing.
So why is that being demolished then? Why is the
I'm
old Joy
not going to
Cafe
get into
demolished?
specifics of individual schemes or what's going on. It's not my place to.
But
It's not my remit
But the
either.
community centre, or whatever it's called, the community hub is so much smaller than was originally planned. It's shrunk. It's not big enough. So you need the old bit. It's there already. You don't need to build it. It's there.
Okay.
It does seem a shame to kind of lose a space, but I'm not
It's a community
part of that
space.
discussion. I'm just going to question
It's
over
a
here.
community space that's already there. So why are you paying someone to demolish it?
There does seem to be a common theme about engagement with the community, and there's a disassociation between what the community actually needs, is what I'm hearing here, what the council is actually doing.
Yes.
How are you going to bridge that?
Well, by trying to work harder in terms of engagement, if you just look at the budget we've done, we just.
Let's not talk about the budget, let's talk about the mechanism to be able to actually resolve that.
Well,
so how are you going to engage with the communities? What's the mechanism to do that? Because at the moment we've got communities which are basically getting feedback. We just heard that you had 0.5% of the population coming to do that feedback. Disproportionate. That's not going to work. So you need the consensus of the mass, not the minority.
Yeah. No,
so how are you going to engage with the majority to be able to get that consensus of opinion coming back, which is going to steer the decision making?
Yeah, so we at every point put more investment money into consultation than we have done before. We take engagement really seriously, and they do help us make our decisions. You've got a number of communities who come together with their, neighbourhoods, area plans and neighbourhood forums, and that's positive. You've got the Localism Act. We are working harder than ever about engaging. You're right. There is a gap in terms of perception and reality of what we do. But the fact is, we did literally to set the council's budget for a whole year, gone out to an engagement where we've never, no council, former Christchurch report ever engaged as much as we have done pre-doing a budget than we've just done. So it's not working. It's not finished, but it's acceptance for councils across